What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Tactical Doghouse. We are doing it voiceover style this week. This video is for anybody who wants to improve their shooting and has either never had formal training or has had formal training so long ago you don't remember it, or maybe you had bad formal training and you're not really satisfied with your results. We are going to talk about grip of your semi-automatic handgun, which is one of the most important of the 6, if you have an optic, or 7 normally, fundamentals of marksmanship. So let's get into it. Why is a good grip important? Number one, it helps you control as best you can the functions of the gun, whether it's engaging or defeating safeties or releasing magazines or operating slide locks or whatever. It's going to give you maximum control. Along with that is the safe operation of the gun. A solid grip keeps your trigger finger where it belongs, which is along the slide, unless you are actively shooting. It will also help you retain the gun if you happen to trip and fall, or if you are in a situation where someone's trying to take your gun from you. A solid grip gives you the best chance to maintain control of your gun. And finally, recoil. We can't eliminate recoil, but we certainly can minimize it with a solid grip. That being said, let's look at how grip is established. A good grip starts when we first lay hands on the gun. In this demonstration, I am drawing from a duty holster, and you'll see that my hand is in kind of a V shape with the V of my thumb and forefinger, between my thumb and forefinger, coming from above and even slightly behind my midline, aggressively and assertively down onto the rear of that grip, so that if I miscalculate at all, the momentum of my hand coming down there will shove that V of my hand up as high as it possibly can go in the back strap. That's where it belongs. As soon as I feel that V there, my thumb defeats the retention device on this particular holster. If you have a retention holster where your trigger finger needs to defeat that, at this point, that's when that would happen. Simultaneously, the lower 3 fingers of my firing hand wrap snugly around the grip, and I bend my elbow aggressively, and that snatches the gun out of the holster. Looking at the concealment holster, you can see it's the same thing. I'm going here inside waistband appendix style, V of hand up high on the back strap, closing those 3 fingers around. As soon as the grip clears my waistband, I'm coming straight up vertically and then straight out toward the target. There is no flagging my environment in that quarter circle to my left. So that's how we're going to establish grip. Now let's talk about adding the support hand in as we're ready to shoot. Take a look at my support hand, left hand, other strong hand, whatever you want to call it, the hand that is not the one pressing the trigger. On this picture of me and my P365, you can see, maybe a better angle would be a little easier to see, that first of all, my cat has scratched the hell out of me, but that's not what we're looking at. We're looking at the fact that my 4 fingers are stacked on top of each other with no gaps between them. So as I raise that hand toward the gun, my fingers are stacked together vertically. As they approach the gun, I'm going to slide my index finger under the trigger guard. As I put those stacked fingers up to the gun, I'm feeling for my index finger under the trigger guard. That is my tactile point of connection. I'm going to feel for that. And I'm going to feel for my index finger to land under the trigger guard somewhere between the middle knuckle and the bottom knuckle. That's going to be the sweet spot for that hand. Where that is exactly on my finger is variant from gun to gun, and it will be for yours as well. Once I have that established, I'm simply going to wrap the rest of that hand around the grip tightly, such that there's no air gap, or as little air gap as I can muster under the palm of my left hand. And my bottom thumb joint is stacked under the bottom thumb joint of my firing hand. So my thumbs are going to be kind of stacked together like spoons. If you look at your grip from the side and your thumbs look like spoons in a drawer, you're probably doing something right. If you look at your grip from the back, looking toward the target, and your hands look like butt cheeks, you're probably doing something wrong, and you need to advance your support hand in front of your firing hand in order to get maximum flesh on that gun. That's what you're looking for, is as much flesh as possible in contact with that gun to help you control recoil. If you're doing it right, and if your gun's not too big for you, you should not see any gun between your hands. Is there an exception on this? And unfortunately, I don't have a picture. Maybe I'll add a picture in here at some point. The exception is on the 1911. Generally, with most 1911s, my firing hand thumb is going to ride on top of the safety as long as I'm shooting the gun. So that does create a little bit of visible frame between my hands, between the thumbs specifically, but not between the palms, assuming the gun fits me and I can reach the trigger guard with reach the triggers, with my normal grip. Okay, y'all, let's talk about recoil management, because really, at the end of the day, that's what grip is all about, right? So we've already established that the V of the hand is up high on the back strap. That's the beginning of recoil management. And then I have added in my support hand like we talked about. Now as I'm shooting, I want to think about most of my grip coming from my support hand. You know, the experts say 60 or 70% of the tightness of that grip is actually coming from, in this case, as you're looking at the video, my left hand and not my right. That trigger finger needs to be able to articulate. That does require a certain amount of relaxation in my firing hand. It's one of those little things that seems counterintuitive. I accomplish a tight enough grip a lot of times by thinking about, as I'm setting up to shoot, thinking about pushing with my primary hand, with the shooting hand, straight toward the target, pushing the gun straight toward the target, and pulling straight back toward my sternum with my support hand. Elbows don't necessarily need to be locked. In fact, if you want tennis elbow as a result of shooting a lot, go ahead and lock your elbows. What needs to be locked up or stiff, medical people will say the wrist joint doesn't genuinely lock, and you're right, but the wrist joints need to be stiff. No matter what you do with your elbows, doesn't really matter. Wrist joints need to be stiff. All right, so as I shoot, I'm simply gripping tighter with my support hand than I am with my primary. Of course, if I'm only shooting with one hand, that changes the equation, and I need to both be articulate and strong with the single hand. That's pretty much grip in a nutshell. Let's talk about some of the mistakes people make with grip. And you'll notice here I'm not actually showing any of the mistakes. One of the first things I learned in instructor workshops was not to show mistakes in public. I was reminded of why that might be just this week when a friend texted me, "Thank you, you know who you are," and said that somebody was using one of my videos out of context in a commercial. So I won't be showing any bad examples, but let's talk about them. The most common grip problem is the so-called T-cupping with the support hand, not having that index finger in contact with the trigger guard above it. I'm not talking about gripping the trigger guard in the front with the index finger. Actually, nothing wrong with that if it helps you feel like you can handle your gun better. The problem sets in when you get beyond about 10 yards and you get to 15, 25 yards. That influence of the index finger of the support hand in front of the trigger guard, if it's there, will laterally move that muzzle, whether you want it to or not. It's going to put lateral influence on that muzzle. The downrange effect is not going to be desirable in most cases. So I think it's easier to make a habit of not putting the index finger of your support hand in front of the trigger guard. Of course, we never ever want to put your support hand thumb behind the slide on a semi. Those of you who have done that and have borne the consequence understand why. You basically have a flying knife with the slide moving maybe 1,100 feet per second in the case of 9mm. Even if it's only going 825 in the case of 45, it will cut you rather mercilessly. It's not any fun, not a life-ending injury, obviously, but not any fun. So just don't do it. Don't let yourself put your thumb behind the slide. Those are the major issues with grip that I see. If you avoid those and do exactly as I've said in this video, I think you're going to have a better shooting experience. It's going to be easier to be faster. It's going to be easier to be more accurate. One other little point. If you find that you are loosening your support hand, or your support hand has to be repositioned after every shot, you're not gripping tight enough to begin with that support hand. Get that grip tighter and work it out. There's a whole school of thought out there about clamping from the left and the right sides around the gun. I don't feel that clamping anything at arm's length between my hands is going to be a strong action for me. For some other people of different stature, that may be the case, but for me, the consideration of the push-pull technique and also using the bones of my, not the bones, the muscles of my lower arm, of my forearm, rather than my fingers, to effect that tight grip with my support side, makes all the difference. I hope this has been helpful to y'all. Thanks for taking the time with me. Thanks for putting up with a voiceover. I hope that you'll like, share, and subscribe, and follow me for what comes up next. I appreciate your suggestions, and whether you like this one's a little bit off the beaten path. In the meantime, we'll see you soon. Tactical Doghouse, out.